What's up, everybody? This is Austin Crume, a senior student broadcaster at Ohio State. You guys are listening to episode 4 of the Into the Stands podcast.
Hey, what's up, everybody? As Austin just said, this is episode 4 of our student broadcaster series. We're talking to different people, mainly from Ohio State, who are taking part in Scarlet and Gray Sports Radio, Big Ten Plus, just getting experience while being students at one of the best sports universities in the country, if not the world. So getting great experience, and you're getting to hear from them about what it is that they do, how they live their lives, how they came to the decisions that they did to get to this point, and any advice they might have if you're thinking about doing it. So, Austin, thanks for coming on with me, man. I appreciate your time.
Of course. Thank you, Dave.
Not a problem. So, jumping right into it, you just finished up your senior year or your junior year, getting ready to be a senior. You excited for the last year?
Surprised how fast it's come,
Yep.
mainly because I didn't start my college career at Ohio State. I only transferred in my sophomore year. So when I had gotten here, I was like, oh, I got 3 years. And then sophomore year was down. And then
Yep.
this year started up, and this is really like the big ramp up year for broadcasting. So it was like, oh, this is going to be a long year. And now it's April 26th, and I've been done with classes for almost a week now. So
Yep.
it's kind of surreal at this point, but also like, all right, we're here. We got 1 year left. Let's do it.
Oh, I get it, man. And not to scare you, but the older you get, the quicker it goes. I turned 28 a couple weeks ago, and I'm like, I don't know where the time has gone. So you transferred over to Ohio State. Where did you go before Ohio State?
I went to Arizona State University. I went to their sports broadcasting school, the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism, which is the second best
That's
school in the
awesome.
country.
That's awesome. So has sports broadcasting always kind of been the goal or the dream?
Well, as a kid, I wanted to play baseball growing
Yep.
up. My dream school was actually University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. I always loved the powdered blues. That was kind of like my reasoning as a kid was
Yeah.
the powdered blue. So kind of went into that. Moved around a bunch as a kid, and eventually it was kind of like, all right, it's time to hang the cleats up. Let's not play this. I actually didn't really know what I wanted to do, even college wise, until a few months before my senior year of high school. My parents were like, "Hey, we're not pressuring you to go to college. You can do your own path, but you got to find something if you're going to do something." So I went, "All right, I love sports. I talk a little bit too much, so let me look into the aspect of sports broadcasting." All I searched up was a simple Google search: best sports broadcasting schools in the country. Number 1, Syracuse. Number 2, Arizona State. Number 3, Indiana University. I didn't want to go to Indiana. I could not afford Syracuse, so I said, all right,
Yep.
let me meet in the middle and look at Arizona State. Applied for there, got accepted, and then no tour, no nothing. 8 months later, I was in Phoenix.
That's incredible. That you got more guts than I do. That's bold. I literally went to school. I'm born and raised in Akron, Ohio. Went to the University of Akron 10 minutes from my parents' place, and yeah, the rest is history. I mean, moving to Columbus was a huge jump for me, and it's 2 hours
Yeah.
away. So what was it that prompted the transfer to Ohio State, or was there just fit right, or was there something that you saw at Ohio State that you found desirable?
It's actually a funny story. So I never grew up in the Ohio area. I grew up in the New York area.
Okay.
Moved to Ohio in high school. So I'd been here since my sophomore year of high school, living in the Cincy area. And at ASU, I was like, all right, I've already moved around a lot. That's why getting to ASU wasn't too big of a problem for me. I had already been
Mm-hmm.
around a lot, so that wasn't a problem. Went to ASU, was finding my bearings, getting into the industry of sports broadcasting. I had never done it up until my freshman year of college. So I looked into it, doing all these things. This is a school where, well, let's put it into perspective. Ohio State, if you're in their student broadcasting radio station, there might be 40 to 50 active. Arizona State had over 350 active just in the sports department.
That's crazy.
Which that's just a little number to put into perspective. Just sports. There was like
Yeah.
6 or 7 other departments. So I'm there at the school, meeting incredible people. Still a lot of people that I consider great friends of mine and coworkers to this day. and just kind of going through the motions of, first off, finding my footing in college, friends, figuring everything out on the other side of the country. My freshman year, I may have done 6 broadcasts because of how many people there were, and they were planned out at the beginning of August. So when
Mm,
I got there, August, whatever day it was, by the time it was September 7th, somebody walked up to me and said, "All right, your first broadcast is November 13th, 2021. You are doing Utah women's volleyball against Arizona State women's volleyball. Here you go."
wow.
And I heard that, and first off, I was like, I have no idea how to prep for this. I don't think I have a broadcast voice or any type of voice that I would know what to use.
Yeah.
And it hit a point where that year was really slow and I was somewhat homesick, that I hit halfway through the year and I thought, this broadcasting thing isn't for me. I tried it. I gave it a full year. I don't think it's for me. So my parents had talked to me and they said, "Hey, what are you thinking?" I said, "Well, I've always wanted to be a baseball coach as well because I couldn't play." I
Yep.
said, "So let me be a coach. Let me look into some schools back home. It would be way cheaper." 2 schools I got down to were University of Cincinnati and Ohio State. The reason I picked Ohio State was for 2 reasons. It was $500 cheaper per semester,
Every
and
penny counts.
because Ohio State had a more recognized name in the Midwest,
Yep.
and that's what it came down to. So transferred to OSU. This was now going into my sophomore year, a sports industry, so sports business slash management slash coaching major is what I'm still am now. Worked as a student manager for the baseball program for 6 months. It was the first semester. And I hit a point where I said, all right, I still want to broadcast. Called up my parents and I said, I know you guys are going to think I'm crazy because I just left the school and I have a very good school, but I
Yep.
want to broadcast again. I want to quit the baseball team and I want to go for it. And they said, all right, we trust you. Go. And from last January up until now, I've basically been broadcasting since then.
That's awesome. So when you were, we won't focus too much on the Arizona State part, but it's, I mean, it's part of your history. Those games that you did, were you doing play by play, color, both? Were you like,
Both.
how did that both? So, and you said you did volleyball there, women's volleyball. Is volleyball a sport that
Mm-hmm.
you had paid attention to, watched, were knowledgeable on at all before that? And like, was that taken into consideration at all?
So when I had gotten there, I think most of us can agree we watched the big 3 sports here. So,
Yep.
baseball, basketball, football.
Yep.
That's what I had focused on. When I found out volleyball and then found out radio volleyball and then found out I'm play by play and analyst, I was like, okay, let me get the rosters,
Yep.
but also just sit down. I have a notebook here somewhere, it might be in my bag, that I used my freshman year. And it's just like rules, positions,
Yep.
everything from volleyball. And I just kept it open next to me with my computer in front of me and a way too big spotting board. Like the thing was probably on like a half like poster.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there looking at it and I'm just like, I don't know what I'm doing. I had zero clue, no idea the flow of it, no idea how to set it up, how to explain it. And of course, when your parents are listening, and I'm pretty sure it's the same way. You do something for the first time, your parents will be like, "Oh, that was great. You never done
Oh
it
yeah.
before."
Yeah.
From that day forward, I was like, all right, first off, that was awful. I still have the recording. I will never listen to it again. I have the recording. I will never listen to it again. But from that day forward, I was like, all right, I got to get better. And then I had done that. And then I thought, all right, I'm done with broadcasting. That's a cool thing I could say I did when I was younger.
Yeah.
Leave it at that. And that was kind of it until I had gotten to OSU.
So when you got to OSU, did you, when you decided you wanted to do broadcasting at Ohio State, did you say, okay, I want to do TV broadcasting or I want to do radio? Like, or was it both? How did that work? And did you join SGSR and Big Ten plus at the same time? Or did you do one and then get into the other?
So luckily, at the beginning of the year, they have a giant career fair on campus.
Yep.
And I was going with my roommate at the time, and I had said to him, I was like, "Look, I did this in my old school. Let me just check it out." Because we were over there, and he's like, "All right, fine." So I go up, and I know there's somebody you already talked to, Tyler Danberg. He was
Yep.
one of the main people I had talked to. He was like, "Oh, this is our club. This is this. Giant smile on the dude, great
He
person."
he was episode 1 of this series for a reason because I wanted to get him out there. I wanted everybody to know who he was because I knew, and it has happened in the now 3
I'm getting name
consecutive
dropped.
interviews after, he's going to be brought up.
Oh yeah, no, I mean he's a great dude for a reason. I'm working with him in a couple hours on another
Yeah.
game. But I showed up to the booth where they were, and I was like, "Hey, look, I had done this a little bit in my past school." I told him ASU, and Tyler was like, "All right, like that's a big school that holds a lot of weight." So he had said, "Are you still interested in doing it?" And I said, "Well, I somewhat am looking towards the coaching side of things, but let me just give you my contact
Yeah.
information. You can put me in like all the group messages, whatever." Because the worst thing I do is I look at them and I go, "Oh, that's a notification I don't need," and kind of just
Yeah.
leave it be.
Yep.
So I had done that for the first 6 months of the year, and that's when I was like, I want to broadcast again. Got a notification of when their next meeting was, and just showed up.
Yeah.
And I wanted to, because I know you had asked about TV or radio. I've always considered myself better on TV because I grew up like baseball specifically. I grew up watching Yankees baseball on TV and
Yep.
just like indulging myself and just watching it. I also learned better visually.
Yeah.
So for me, it's easier to explain what's going on or kind of make it more conversational when it's on TV. I was terrified of radio play-by-play.
And it's
Basically, up until about 8 months ago. Like,
yeah.
I mean, that's just
Yeah.
the truth. It's a scary thing, and I was like, all right, but no one's ever just going to do TV or just do radio. So you got to suck it up and just go.
Yeah. And it's funny talking to people, like everybody has a preference, and it's you would think everyone would prefer TV because you're not as responsible on TV, right? You're
Mhm.
adding to what the viewers are seeing. Radio, you are everything. And so it's a
Yeah.
lot more stress and all that. But it's funny, like so far I should be keeping track, but I'm not. I'm pretty sure it's 50-50 on people I've talked to so far that are like, yeah, I would rather do radio, I'd rather do TV. But everybody has that reason for it. Like the people who would rather do radio is because they enjoy the ability of saying, talking about the ballpark, saying, okay, Ohio State's got this, the wall in center in the outfield's red fades to gray, has the Buckeye leaves, got the black batter's eye in the background,
Hmm.
scoreboard in right center
Right
field,
center.
you know, giving that idea of how everything's portrayed. I don't know if you grew up listening to the Cavs games at all or anything like that on the radio. I know you said you moved around a lot.
Knicks games. So I grew up to Knicks games.
Knicks games. So like I grew up listening to Joe Tate, who's a legendary broadcaster, passed away a few years ago, did the Cavs,
Hmm.
and every game would start out, Cavaliers moving left to right across your radio dial, wearing their wine jerseys, gold trim, like
Yep.
just painted that picture for you and had the perfect way of doing it. When you're on TV, it's, as you know, a totally different monster.
So
Where
no, I'll let you finish and then
I
I'll
was
hop
gonna
in.
say, like, where it's just you're able to kind of relax a little bit more and have more fun with it. And not that you can't have fun on radio, but relax a little bit more, have more fun with it, be more descriptive of what's going on rather than what it looks like.
Like as time has gone on, what I've realized, like baseball, softball, you get me on radio, I could do that the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Just because I had grown up with it and the description factor. As much as I had grown up watching, Yankees games, I also, the guy who just retired, John Sterling.
Yep.
I had vivid memories of listening to him driving back to my house from my grandparents' place in New Jersey at 7 years old. We're just sitting in the back and kind of just taking everything
Yeah.
in, how he's explaining it. I also think it's a comfort thing with the sport. Like I will be, I'm not saying honest, but why would I not be? I had never done football broadcasting until this year. My first game was the Ohio State at Notre Dame game. That was my first time in football. I mean,
Talk
like
about being thrown into the
it's
fire, man.
quite a
Holy
welcome
cow.
to the league moment. It
And
was just like,
if
all right,
for the future, if you're coming back listening to this in a couple years, this is recorded after, the game he's talking about was at Notre Dame, 2023 night game. Ohio State went overtime, right? Or
they
was it
won with 2 seconds left on the
2
clock. It was
seconds
a
left?
handoff to Chip Trainum. He cuts through the B gap, I believe, because they only
Yep.
ran 10 personnel instead of 11.
Yep. And I couldn't remember if it was overtime or if I knew it was a last second thing. I couldn't remember if it was overtime or if it was regulation, but talk
Yeah.
about being thrown into the fire, man. Holy cow.
Well, the worst part too was that the kid I was working with, Joey Feary, had graduated a couple months ago, also with Big Ten Plus in Ohio State. He I had told him because he was a senior and I was, just starting my junior year. I said, look, if you want the second half, it's a big game. I'm not going to say no. You could take it. He said, yep, all good. We drive to South Bend. We get there, set everything up. My sweat molecules have sweat because I'm just terrified.
Yeah.
Never done football. I'm now starting the first quarter or like the first half. So I have no idea the flow. I can try to listen to radio or listen to how Tyler and Matt, the other two, had gone a
Yeah.
few weeks prior. We don't have a splitter, which for some people may be confused. What's the big deal with a splitter? So
Mm,
basically, with an audio board, you have the two headsets you plug them into a phone output, and then if you have a splitter, you can plug both headsets into said splitter and hear each other. When you do not have that, one person can hear themselves and the other person can't hear themselves or the other person. So you're kind of dead in the water.
yeah.
I assumed you watched it on TV. This was the loudest I had ever heard any stadium, and I was at the Michigan game this year. I had never heard a game so loud that my broadcast partner, he and I were face to face to each other, and I could not hear a word he was saying. And this was like that for
Incredible.
about an hour.
Yeah.
It was an incredible experience, but also like football and basketball are two sports I've basically taught myself. My
Yeah.
my family has always been a baseball family.
Yep.
So football mainly I taught myself. Basketball I actually learned from playing 2K, ironically.
Hey,
But
it works.
they'd never been big, basketball football people, so kind of getting around at the beginning. Baseball I'm way more comfortable with explaining because I've done it for X number of games on
Yeah.
radio. So you give me another 6 years, I could probably be saying the same thing about basketball and football and go, yeah, I can explain it more because I know some of the patterns. I know this. I know
Yeah.
this. It's really a big comfort thing, though, which is why I think for now, TV is kind of more favored.
Absolutely. So okay, so you started as a student manager for Ohio State baseball. Once you came into Ohio State, we'll move past the
Okay.
freshman year. So you start as a student manager at Ohio State. You decide, okay, I want to do broadcasting. How many games, or do you remember how many games you did that first year you decided to do broadcasting? How many were TV? How many were radio?
Oh, like here at OSU?
At OSU, yeah, your
Mhm.
first season, which did you broadcast sophomore year
I
at
did
all?
broadcast somewhere. It was the second semester.
Okay.
So my
Um,
first game, and I'll consider it like a pre and post game kind of a thing,
yeah.
was the men's team, the men's basketball team against Maine.
Okay.
It was like a December 20th game, so no one was on campus. I drove up from Cincy, full suit, the 2 hour drive up, talked for 15 minutes, was way in over my head, thought, oh, this is going to be easy. And I got back on the microphone and it was like, I have no voice, I have no air. It was kind of that, like, I have no idea what I'm doing.
Mhm.
And that happened. And I went, all right, this is going to take a little bit more than I thought.
Yeah.
So then it was really trying to get a game was hard because there were so many. At this point, it was, I was scared to do volleyball. I was scared to do X number of
Mhm.
sports because I'd never done them before. So I may have done my sophomore year. I got the opportunity to do a travel game at Michigan, and then I got to do the men's basketball tourney in Chicago,
Oh, nice.
which was like, that was a huge, like, hey, we're going to trust you. Let's see what you got
Yeah,
kind of a
for
moment.
sure.
So I think I had done between that, I think I had done 2 or 3 baseball games. I probably only did about, oh goodness, like 8 games, 9 games, 12 games the second half of my sophomore year. So going into the summer where I had a summer ball internship, I may have had 27 games, 26 games done in my entire life.
And now opposed, like, just for reference, how many do you think you've done this season or this year
Oh,
as a junior?
so I write down every game that I have. I just write down a number. So whatever
Yeah,
game it is. So I have my giant scorebook. I know you can
that's
see this,
awesome.
Dave. So my last game that I had done was, goodness, where is it? Aside from whatever I'm going to do today, it was April 16th. It was Ohio State softball against Penn State. That was game number 121. So
And
I have done just about 50 this year.
that's awesome. Um, so yeah, this is going to be a good one for you. I've asked this to everybody as well, and I plan on asking everybody going forward too. Um, but I think your answer is gonna be fun for it. So, like you said, you grew up a baseball guy. You
Mhm.
kind of learn basketball and football. Are there any sports that you have been asked to do and going into it, like you got asked and you're like, oh boy, like, oh, and then
All
you
the
go
time.
in and you do it, and you're like, you know what? I like that. That was fun. That was cool. I want to do that again. And
Well, hmm.
if you have, like, what sports are the like, what sport have you had that experience with?
Well, football first off, and not even because of like I know the game of football. It's
Mhm.
just we all know the game of football. I just can't go off the basis of the game of football. So
It
explaining
is
everything like
it,
that.
being able to broadcast football, especially on the radio, you are essentially have to have the knowledge of the game of a coach.
Yep.
You can't go in there as a fan and be completely successful. You have to be able to go in and see formations, see, defensive formations, offensive formations, figure out what, and be able to anticipate what play is coming, which is possible to do if you watch enough film and all that. I talked to Paul Keels on here, and he said that
Mhm.
he goes back every football game that he does, he watches the previous games of the other team several times to try and learn formations, learn, you know,
Interesting.
it's and that way he can speak knowledgeably not just on Ohio State because I mean you're going to pick that up naturally watching every game,
Yeah.
but know that okay, JJ McCarthy's under center here. He's got Donovan Edwards behind him. There's a good chance Donovan Edwards is going to get the ball. Stuff like that that you can pick up on if you. And I mean that's very very basic,
Hmm.
but
Yeah. No, but like I know what you mean because then you could go plays like that. Like, is he gonna jump around the left tackle? How is he gonna get it? Are they gonna rush a bunch? Are they just gonna drop one? Is the nickel gonna be roving? I mean, there's a million factors you have to think about,
yeah,
which I never
and
did until the season started.
like baseball. I mean you'll be able to attest to this. The more you watch pitchers pitch, every pitcher has tells, whether
Yes.
they mean to or not. And like being able to pick up on those is a great thing for a broadcaster to do. But that's the level of knowledge that you have to have in order to do what you guys do, of where you're essentially good enough to be a coach and analyze these teams, which is very impressive. Because for me, doing PA or scoreboard or whatever, I just need to know what the official's doing. I need to know who has the ball and who caught the ball, made the tackle. Like that's all I need to know.
Yep.
But so I mean, I give you guys credit. I can never do what you do, especially for the I'll say timed sports of basketball, football, hockey, where it's constant motion. I mean,
Yep.
baseball, I could probably go into baseball and do
You haven't. You Here's the thing. You have enough
my
knowledge. We've talked about this. You have enough
my
knowledge of baseball that if you
if I
wanted to
did
be at least an analyst, you could do
yeah,
it.
if I did a radio play by play for baseball, it would be listenable.
Yeah.
I'll put it that way. That's not great. That's not great. But like, and not saying
You know the
baseball is an
basics of
easy
baseball.
sport to do, but it's a whole different monster when you get into the timed sports, like you said,
Oh,
for
definitely.
football, for basketball, for hockey. So it's a lot of fun. So that's why I was curious, when you did the volleyball games, did you think, okay, these are kind of cool, these are kind of fun. I'd like to get into these more. And then because that's one I've been hearing a lot from the Ohio State students is there a sport that you've never followed before, you've never watched that you were asked to do, and you're like, oh, this is sweet, I want to do this. The answer every time has been men's or women's volleyball at Ohio State, partially because
Okay.
the teams are so good, they're fun to watch, they put a good product on the court, and also the atmosphere in Covelli is incredible. And so that's why I was curious on if you had any of those moments where it was like, okay, know nothing about this sport going into it, but afterwards you're like, okay, that was pretty cool. I'd like to do that again.
Yeah. So for OSU, has to be women's volleyball.
Yep.
I did the Purdue game. Goodness, at the beginning of the year, or no, it was the Georgia Tech game. This was the day before I had to leave for the Northwestern game. So I had two different sports, or not Northwestern, the Notre Dame game. So I had two brand new sports basically on back to back days, play by play for both. So I was like, all right, we're just going to kind of go into it. I thought it was great. Listening back, I thought my energy could have been better to match the crowd, but talking about that crowd energy is great. If I go
Mm-hmm.
back to my freshman year, this is an answer you're probably not going to expect. ASU has a women's water polo team. I
Really?
got to do one game of that my freshman year. I didn't know much about it. The way I had gotten a couple of friends to explain it, it's basically water soccer.
Okay.
And as much as the audio for our microphone and our board setup did not go through the greatest, if I had the opportunity to do that again now on TV, I'm doing it in a heartbeat. I thought it was so much fun to
That's
watch. I
awesome.
don't know why, but it's one of those sports where you think, why are you doing water polo on the radio? And then you watch it and you're like, all right, I understand why. A lot happens in
Mm-hmm.
the quick time that they have, and that's also a time allotted sport. So you're working against the clock.
Yeah. And so that, yeah, I mean, and it's always fun kind of getting into doing the niche sports, the water polos, the field hockey,
Hmm.
tennis to a point. I mean, tennis is kind
The
of
women's lacrosse compared to men's lacrosse, even the
how it,
difference in rules.
they're different sports at
Yes,
that level. I mean, it's incredible. So yeah, no, it's a lot of fun. Have you done a sport on the flip side where you're like, okay, never done this before, let's go into it, see how it goes, and you're like, I'd be okay if I never had to do that again. And it's nothing
women's
against this.
lacrosse.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say it's
It's
nothing
it's the
against the
ruling.
sport.
I thought it was. I thought no. I thought the energy for the game and how quick they move was the best part of it. Because I am someone who, as much as you'll hear broadcasters, you always want to keep an even keeled tone. Where if it gets too fast, sometimes your voice kind of jumps and keeps following it,
Yep.
which is good at some points, but bad at others. This is a sport that you can allow it to rise up, finish it off on a softer note, give a couple seconds to reset, like on TV at least, and get right back into the action and their scoring. It was mainly the personnel numbers are so drastically different from the men's. The rules
Mm-hmm.
are so drastically different. The amount of contact you can have, the game plans they run. And this is for a sport that I had never known. So you go back to the
Yeah.
whole football thing of you have to know sets and you have to know what are you going to run here? Are you going to, rush five the entire time, drop too high? Are you going to cover the corners more? I mean, there's so many options. You now put that into a sport like not even men's lacrosse, but women's lacrosse, where it's completely different. The defensive schemes are almost incomplete compared to the men's because of something called shooting space,
Mm-hmm.
and you're having to figure it out on the fly. I knew nothing about the sport until about 4 days prior.
Yeah. It's and it's amazing. Like lacrosse is definitely one where you can know the men's game or the women's game, go watch one of the other ones and be totally lost.
Yep.
Men's basketball, women's basketball, they're the same thing. There's some differences in rules there, but nothing major.
Volleyball as well.
Volleyball, same thing. Lacrosse, it's two different sports. It's insane. Um, so okay, so you did some broadcasting your sophomore year, and then I saw you did some stuff with the Ashboro Zookeepers baseball team in
Mm-hmm.
summer of 23, right? Or last
Yeah,
summer?
so last summer. Yep.
Yeah, so tell what'd you do for them?
So that was my broadcast internship. It was me and another kid, Graham Simpson. He goes to a D2 school in South Carolina. It was the first time I'm not saying I'd ever been away from home since I had transferred back to OSU for a long time.
Mhm.
But my parents, I talked to them. I said, look, I still think I want to do this broadcast thing. I'm committed to it. This is going to be a real test where I like to do it. But if I get into this and it is just, it was 50 games in 2 months, which is like, okay, that's fine. This is going to be a test of do I really love what I'm doing? Do I love the grind of it?
Yep.
The sleepless nights, the 27-hour workdays, which I had a couple of those. The million things that go into it. The constant stress you're under, and then having to go broadcast the game for 3 hours to then get back under more stress. There was a lot that I took away from it that in the moment was like, damn, this kind of sucks. This is this. This is this. Looking back at it now, I've never been happier
Yeah.
because of the growth it gave me. And I know you also had asked me earlier if I had done Big Ten Plus games, my sophomore year, whatever. I applied for Big Ten Plus. I wasn't in the group or in the club for long enough to get accepted until this August. So my
Gotcha.
first time doing TV, like a full TV kind of setup, was soccer, men's soccer against or women's soccer against Ohio U, I believe. So that was my first time doing TV or anything Big Ten Plus related. I'm not saying no real insight on the club. They told me, look, you would have gotten in, but you haven't been here long enough, and we're not changing the rules. But
Yeah,
that's fine. I never expected them to.
absolutely. Yeah,
But I
that's
think it's actually a blessing in disguise because I was somewhat, annoyed at the beginning, like, oh, I thought I could, get into it. They said it was good enough to get in, but they, wouldn't allow me. 55 games later, 60 games later, whatever it was, I get back. I'm now on there. And it's like, if they let me in 60 games ago, this would have been awful. Like the
yeah,
product would have been drastically different. So I'm
and you
actually glad that they left me out.
yeah, it's a life lesson on there's rules like that for a reason.
Yeah.
That they want to put the best product out there that they can, and SGSR is a great learning method. I mean,
Hmm.
I think it's a great thing to go from radio to TV is a great transition because on radio you can like we said, I mean, you can prove that you're able to give that more detailed insight into the game and all that, and
Hmm.
not having to give as much visual detail really helps on the baseball side. So, um, this I saw you had posted on Twitter and on LinkedIn that you accepted a position for this summer. Tell us a little bit about that.
So it's another broadcasting position. This is in the Northwoods League. It's for the only team in Iowa, the Waterloo Bucks. So I'm going from Buckeyes to Bucks, and not too difficult of a name
No,
change.
no, not too bad. Just make sure you don't slip up and say Buckeyes instead of Bucks.
Oh, I probably will the first couple of games, but my boss, so I'm in Hawkeye country at that point. I got to see
That
how they respond to
that's
that.
true.
But
That's true.
no, but it's a it's considered, and I don't really like talking about it because I know some people think it's bragging, some people think it's this and this. Northwoods League is considered the either first or second best league in the country, either behind the Cape Cod League or in front of it. And I've talked to people who work in the industry, whether it's minor league baseball or for networks or whatever. They believe that it's the closest thing you can get to a minor league gig or a major league gig before actually getting there.
That's
So
awesome.
I was hired for TV, so I'll be doing TV, but also some radio if I
Yep.
have the potential to do so. So there's the opportunity that I do 76 games in 72 days,
Wow.
which is,
You're
I
gonna
mean,
be
that number
working this
right there is
summer.
just it.
You're
So
you're gonna
I've
be
looked at my
working.
schedule. Yeah, no, I looked at my schedule. My parents are like, "Oh, when are your off days?" I have 6 of them. I can tell you when my off days are because I know when I have them.
And let me guess what you're gonna either be sleeping or prepping on those off days.
Oh, I'm gonna be prepping. I'm gonna be prepping. I'm gonna have I'll put in air quotes, a no work day, but the only thing I'm
Yeah.
gonna be doing is game notes, prepping the rosters, and getting ready for the road.
Yep.
There are no off days in this industry. When I
No,
have
there's not.
off days, I'm prepping for another game.
But you know what? There's no off days, but how many people can say that they're lucky enough to get paid to watch sports?
Oh, I love it.
That's why people ask me all the time. So, like, I don't know if you know. So, full time, I'm an electrical engineer. I work from
Hmm.
home. I do lighting and power design. I do sports on the side. So, like, I'll work a full day and then I'll turn around and go work a baseball game or a basketball game or whatever. And
Hmm.
like Saturdays in the fall, I'm at football. And people always ask me, they're like, well, like, how do you like why do you do that? Like, you get no free time or anything. I'm like, I
So much
literally
fun.
if I wasn't doing this, I would be paying to go to a Clippers game or paying to go to an Ohio State basketball game. Like, why not
Yeah.
go and get paid to do it? Go, behind the scenes and all the cool stuff we get to do, meet the people we get to meet, and do all this stuff. Like, to me, it's not work. To
Hmm.
me, it's just fun, and I'm dreading, dreading. I have about 2.5, 3 weeks left, and then I have no sports on my calendar because it's the summer and I only work at Ohio State.
Ooh.
So I'm like, I need to find
Aw.
something for the summer.
Yeah, I
And
was
I'm
gonna
gonna
say you
be
gotta
dying.
find something.
I'll be sitting here just rocking back and forth, just waiting for the fall. But
So it's so funny because you say that. I mean, I don't really. It's weird. I don't like telling people what I do
yeah,
because of the factor of like, oh, that seems you hear somewhat the quote of like, oh, what you do might be easy. I mean, no job is ever easy. No
no,
job is easy. Let me just put that out there. No job is easy. And as much as we are blessed and thankful to be able to do a job like this where I can
hmm
talk and you can talk sports,
yeah,
it's not easy to do so on any given day.
no,
But when people ask, they're like, "Oh, what do you do?" It's like, well, I give them two answers depending on the age difference or the group. So if
Yeah,
it's people my age, I tell them I'm a professional yapper. They
fair.
love hearing that one. They love hearing that one. And if I talk to anybody who's probably over the age of 25, so not anything too crazy, only a few years older than myself, it's always just I'm a sports broadcaster. Oh, what does that entail? Okay, let me kind of
Here we
go
go.
through the entire. All right, all right. How long do you got? You might want to sit down for this one.
Yeah,
Let me
yep.
just get involved. You tell them, like you said, one of the best potential collegiate athletic schools in the world. Oh, I go to OSU. Oh, what do you do? I broadcast X number of sports. I think at this point I've done like 10 or 11 this year. So,
Yeah.
I broadcasted this number of sports. Oh, do you do football? Yes, I do football. Do you do basketball? Yes, I do basketball. What parts? Well, if you're going to go football, I did 8 games this year. So, well, actually 9 games this year. So I had done from week 1 to the Cotton Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
Basketball, I had done their first non-conference game to for the women's their March Madness run. I mean, there's a million ways to do it, but I don't like telling people because I think some of them think it's cocky.
Yeah.
Because,
But like
like you said, electrical engineer. I can't just be like, oh, I go and talk sports for a living. And by the way, I was at the Cotton Bowl. And by the way, I was at March Madness. And by the way, I did this and this and this.
but like the thing about it is like, while yeah, it sounds cocky, but like the Cotton Bowl, we'll use that for an example.
Yeah.
That's your office for the day.
Yeah.
Like
It was for the
that's
week. Yeah.
or for the week, that's no different than, an accountant going to his accounting firm and working. Like that's your
Hmm.
office. It's just a matter of it's a pretty sick office.
It's a pretty cool office. I won't lie. Yeah. It's a cool
And like
office.
and the thing too is like, the benefit that we get is that, people thinking of football, how many people paid thousands of dollars to go to the Cotton Bowl? Paid to travel there, paid to stay in
Oh, goodness.
hotels
Yeah.
and all that stuff, or just a regular game here. A regular game at
Hmm.
Ohio State, you're looking what, probably at least 50 bucks a ticket?
I was going to say $50 a ticket, depending on the game. I mean,
At,
if you're gonna go the game week 13, you're paying 500 each,
at
if
least.
not more.
And we get to go, we get paid, we are in a heated booth in the
We can go to
winter.
the field with field
We
access.
can go to the field with field access, take pictures, do whatever we wanna do down there. We can we get food.
Yep.
I mean, we don't
Not the
get dr
greatest food, but food is food.
hey, powdered eggs are really good until week, like,
I gotta
4.
say, you get those, and then you get like the McDonald's smoothies. I'm
Those
set for
make
at
up
least
for
three
it.
weeks. Oh,
Those make
they
up
do
for
make
it.
up for
The
it. Yeah.
frappes are legit.
Oh,
Um,
they're so good.
but it's and then, hey, halftime hot dogs aren't bad either. Um,
They, if we're not talking the baseball stadium, which we've done ad nauseum at the actual stadium.
yeah. Yeah, no, we've done that. But,
Yeah.
like, it's one of those things where so, like, don't get me wrong, I love engineering. If my boss is
Mhm.
is listening, I love it. I love my job. Keep me on. But sports has really showed me, like, even the minor role that I play, right? Doing PA or scoreboard or something like that, where I go in for the game and I leave. I don't have to do any real prep. I don't have to do anything like that. But it has showed me the true meaning of, like, if you love what you do, you don't work a day in your life. I don't know if I talked to you at all on um the day of the spring game. So I don't
Yeah.
did you know about
We
my
we talked
day?
we talked a little bit. You said so you went from the football game to Cavelli for volleyball,
So I was
and that's
supposed
that's kind of what we got to.
so I was scheduled to work the spring game at noon and then the volleyball game at 5, doing
Hmm.
scoreboard for football, replay for volleyball, which not a problem at all. Football end about 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, football end about 4, roll over to or
It
no,
would
I'm
end at
sorry.
3, I thought.
Correction.
Yeah.
Yes. Football ended at 3, roll over to volleyball, have plenty of time, no problem. There's a couple minutes left in the football game, and I'm running the scoreboard. It's quarter to 3, and the guy in charge of baseball, Evan Durr, comes into my booth and goes, "Hey, PA announcer never showed up. You need to get to baseball now." Game starts in 15 minutes. Now there's like
Oh,
4 minutes left in the football game. People are leaving. The crowds, I mean, no, you can't park by the stadium if you're a fan. You're walking in.
I walk in a suit to every game.
So for the spring for regular games, I park in one of the garages like across the street from the stadium. But for the spring game, I park in that west lot right next to the
Ooh,
stadium.
yep.
So I get down there and I get a text from the facility people saying, "Hey, call this number. This is the person in charge of all the police directing traffic. Tell them what car you're driving and where you need to go." And so literally it was like a coordinated effort because it was that tight of time. Like you think 15 minutes to get from football to baseball, that's a 2-minute drive. But with the people, it's not.
Or walking
And
down the steps, getting to your car.
yep,
Yeah.
yep. And it was funny because so like I'm going through and all this stuff, and I pull into the baseball parking lot and I get a call from Evan, and he goes, "Hey," he goes, we're watching you from the football stadium on the cameras. There's no parking spots there. Drive across the street, park at the shot, and go over. So like they were literally watching on the cameras like where I was, and
That's
were,
so
were
funny.
were able to tell me where to park and everything. And I got there as the first batter. We were playing Iowa. As the first batter for Iowa steps in the box, I got
Was that
there.
Raider Tello or was that?
I think it was, yeah.
Yep.
Yep. And so as he stepped into the box, so like I didn't do any pregame reads or anything, literally just went right into leading off for the Hawkeyes. And then I'm sitting there in this game, I'm like watching the
Out of
clock.
breath. You're trying to
I'm
figure out.
and I'm like dying. I need water, but there's no water that like they don't have water there. I'm like, oh my God, let's go.
Yep.
I'm sitting there watching the clock because I'm like, okay, this game started at 3. I have volleyball at 5.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, shit, like this is gonna be tight. So work the game. The baseball game ended at 10-5. And so I shoot over to Covelli, and
Oh
this might be
no.
like the craziest part of the story. Shoot over to Covelli. I park in the little like loading dock parking lot behind there. Have to
Mhm.
convince the red coat to let me do it in the first place. So I pull in there, park, and I go in. You know that door. This is gonna make no sense to people listening, but I'm talking to you, so I don't care.
Yeah.
That door where you go up the steps and it puts you right by the Big Ten Plus studio
Yes.
or the control room. So I
Yep.
go up those stairs, and every once in a while that door is open or it's propped open or whatever, and it's closed. I'm like, shoot. So I'm like, I got to go all like down and around and all this stuff. I'm like, I don't have
Down
time for this.
around up the ramp. He did. Yep.
Next thing I know, Gene Smith gets out of his car right in front of me and goes, he's like, hey, he goes, is your fingerprint not working? I'm like, oh, I don't have that access. And he goes, hey, I got you. And he came up the stairs and like used his fingerprint to let me get in.
Gene.
I literally got in the arena as the anthem was playing.
Oh my
I'm
goodness.
like, this could not have been
You raced the clock at 3 sports in 1.
literally. And then the best part is I'm sitting there and we're like halfway through the game, and I was doing replay, and I always have a student tech with me.
Mhm.
And he's like, man, you've been all over the place today. I'm like, yeah. And he's like, hey, you even had time to eat? And I'm like, I wish you didn't say that because
Now that I think about it,
I
yeah.
didn't realize I was hungry. So I literally gave him my credit card. I'm like, go get me food at the concession stand. Like,
Yep.
I know
Get
this isn't
something,
your job, but just go do this.
please.
So it's like, but like, it sounds crazy, but it was such a fun day. Like, the moral of the
I
story
mean,
is it was an
days
insane
like that
day,
are insane.
but I would do it every Saturday if I
Oh
had the
yeah.
chance. Like,
I mean, I've had the opportunity to work for the Cubs in the MLB with
yeah,
some high school baseball stuff
yep,
in Chicago, and the weekend we always do it. I've done it for about 2 years now. It's always in the middle of July. I don't think I'll be able to do it this year with my internship,
yeah,
but it's a 4 day broadcasting thing from like the best schools or well the best like local teams in the Midwest. So like Cincinnati has one. It's called like the Nike RBI program,
yeah.
reviving baseball in inner cities or whatever it's called. We do 15 games in about 3 days.
That's insane.
I've had where it's 5 games in one day, back to back to back. The only prep I have are the lineups that I get about 2 minutes before first pitch, and then it's
Yep,
like, all right, you're live, go. Like I'm still
yep,
writing everything down in the third inning to make sure. Also, I feel like you would know this as well. As much as these are our natural voices, when you do PA or when you broadcast, you tune it.
yeah,
So it sounds more professional. It's a little
yep,
better. It's like an instrument. You tune an instrument.
100%.
You don't have time or after a game, my analyst voice and play by play voice are different. So if it's play by play, my voice is kind of shot for a little while.
Mhm.
Even with analysts, similar. But when I'm doing 5 games, I don't have time to go drink water, get cough drops or use honey to help coat my throat. Like I have no time. So it's
Yeah.
game to game to game to game. And my voice is dying by the end of game 3. And then
Yep.
I'm annoyed that I don't sound professional enough.
Yep.
And then it's that endless cycle of like I I never think I sound professional enough. I always think it could be like an octave like deeper or a little
Yep.
more tuned in, but it's always going to be a me thing.
And that's something
So,
that, like, I've learned and I've been told many times, like, you are going to be your toughest critic, always.
oh yeah.
And so, like, when I'm doing PA, like, I'm trying to get more and more PA jobs as many as I can. Like, next season, I would
Hmm.
love it if I was the baseball guy or
Yeah.
the basketball guy. So, like, I had the opportunity to do the Virginia Tech, Ohio State NIT basketball game on PA. It's the
Yeah.
first basketball game I'd ever done. And, like, the number of people that were there that I was talking to afterwards that was like, "Hey, how did I was asking, "How did it sound? What could I do differently? How did it," and everyone was like, "No, it sounded great." Like,
Yeah.
but in my mind, I'm like, "No, tell me what I did wrong." Like, there
Or
had
like,
to be
tell me what I
things.
did wrong, or like you'll remember like exact moments of like, oh, my voice didn't go to this tone, or didn't do this, or didn't do
Oh,
this.
I did gymnastics the national championship for men's gymnastics this past weekend, and
Yep.
there were 2 times on so it was all day Friday and then Saturday evening. So, like you said,
Oof.
it's a lot, and
Yeah,
there were
your voice
3
is shot by the end of it.
that there were 3 of us doing it, so we each had 2 apparatuses that we were in charge of, but still, I mean,
Hmm.
that's a lot of competitors,
That's a lot of talking.
a lot of names, and on Sunday or Saturday, there was 2 times where, like, my voice, like, cracked or I said something wrong. I'm the only person that noticed, I'm the only person that's
And
gonna
you're
remember, but
so
it
annoyed.
sticks with me.
Hmm.
It sticks with me, and, like, there was a for the fencing championships I did, about a little over a month ago, there was a girl I announced the wrong name for the national championship bout. It was
Oof.
they did the Final Four and then the championship, and
Hmm.
I was keeping track on paper, and I wrote down the wrong winner of one of the Final Four bouts, and so I had
Hmm.
her in the championship, and so that's who I announced coming in, and the girl, like, never didn't come out of the tunnel. I'm like, "What just happened?" I'm like, "Oh, no."
Yeah.
Like, it
I mean,
just dread as
I
soon as it
do that
happened,
more than you know.
and, well, the issue was, so they didn't have commentators for the ESPN Plus, so my PA audio was just piped directly to ESPN Plus, and then it was
Oh,
just crowd audio. It was just crowd
gotcha.
mics. So, anyway, the girl comes in, she ended up winning the national champion like, I fixed it, said who it was, she came in, she won. I saw her the next day, and I'm like, "Alright, 2 things.
I'm so sorry.
First of all, congratulations. Huge win for you. That's awesome. You know, enjoy it. Second of all, I am so sorry." And she goes, "Oh, no." She goes, "I thought it was hilarious." She goes, "You're good." I'm like, "Oh, thank God." But,
See,
like, it
that's always half the battle. Like with summer baseball, I've found out that you're going to have some kids' names. Even like Michigan State, I've been going through their
yeah,
roster for the game today and this weekend. Some of their players are like their names are nuts.
don't tell me
So
that. I'm doing PA
I've had
tonight.
well, I've had. Have you gone through? Well, now I have to ask. Have you
I
gone?
haven't had time to look at it yet. No, I'm about to pull it up now.
When we get to the stadium later, you and I are going to sit down and
We're
we're going
go
to go through some of these
we're going
names.
over names. Alright.
Yeah, but with summer ball at least, you are the media guy, you are the broadcaster. If you ask the players, some schools don't have pronunciation guys, and some players they don't tell you if there's like a mix up in their name.
Yep.
So I'm going through some of this summer, broadcasting some of the names, doing whatever, and I'll look at like the Twitter, and it's like, can you pronounce my son's name right? And it's like, first off, I apologize. I don't mean to, disrespect your last name or anything. But your son is not telling me his last name. He's not
No.
telling me how to pronounce it because he doesn't talk or because, and I understand that's my job to kind of get it out of him. Most of the players are fine with it. But there have been some times where it's just like, or they'll blame me. Like if I'm doing goodness, I can't speak, a road radio game
Mhm.
and the main feed is TV. Most of the parents don't necessarily know how to find the online streaming service. So
Yeah.
they'll watch the TV game, their broadcasters will get the name wrong, and then
And
we
then they'll
will
come
get
at
the
you.
flack for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, hey, can you announce my son Danny Thomas's name correctly? And I was like, I know it's Danny Thomas. I'm not trying to be rude here, but that's not me.
Have you ever had the there's a little insight here into just stuff that happens with us. Have you ever had the situation where you know how to say a name, you can say it no problem, but as soon as you have a microphone in front of you, you say it wrong every time? Have you ever had that
Or what
situation?
I will, a million times. I'll actually, let me see if I can find one in my book. I spell them phonetically. So like some of the
Yeah.
really odd names, I'll look at them like I have one in here. It's like even with one of the players for Northwestern softball, her last name was Zdak, but I don't remember how it's spelled. I spelled it out Zee dash Dak, like Dak Prescott.
Yeah.
That's how I spell it out. And I look at it, and the thing I've always noticed, especially with baseball and softball, when it's in play, you don't necessarily know everyone's there. Sometimes you have to look down to get a name, whatever.
Mhm.
I'll see it in the middle of the play, and I'll say Zadak, and then
Yeah.
boom, wrong because it's in the middle of the play, and I have half a second to identify who it is.
Yep.
All the time. It's
It's
so
yeah.
annoying. It's so frustrating.
Yeah, it's one of I did high school volleyball this year, and there was a kid who on the team, his last name was spelled Tague, so it was Tag, like
Mm-hmm.
Hague, but Tag. For whatever reason, and obviously I know that. Anytime I announced it, it came out Tag.
Yep.
There was nothing I could do. Like, I could sit there and I'll say Hag or Tag, Tag,
Yep.
over and over and
No,
over again.
or like you'll mute yourself, and it's like it's Tag, it's Tag, it's Tag, and then you get the red light
Yep.
tag.
It's so frustrating how that happens, but, it's part
Or
of it, and
something you may not have dealt with is when you're with an analyst. Like when when you're play by play, I always try to I always try to go with whatever they announce it as.
yeah.
So if it's I'm not saying if it's close enough, but like if you could say it quickly and it sounds right, I'm normally not going to step in and like fix the play-by-play
Mhm.
guy because
Yeah.
it's not somewhat out of line. It's also somewhat unwritten that you don't really do that. But there have just been times where I've had the guy I'm working with who's play-by-play, and I'm an analyst, and they'll get it wrong 3 or 4 times in a row. And I'm not trying to be an a hole or whatever it
No,
is.
yeah.
I'm just trying to get it right because I understand the importance of it because I've gotten my last name wrong,
Absolutely, yeah.
pronounced incorrectly my entire life. So I understand
I'm
the
not gonna
importance
lie, I
of it.
thought your last until this week, I thought your last name was Crumb.
Most people do think it's Crumb, but it's I understand the importance of it. So there's some times where I will say the last name properly on the play. Like they might get it wrong, but as the analyst, if I'm able to clean the play up and get it before
Mhm.
it switches, I will say it right so that at least the parents know, like, all right, they'll
Yeah.
get it. And then if we have a break, sometimes I'll go to them and I'll be like, look, I know you're not trying to do it. I'm also not trying to call you out and get in your head. It's not this, it's this. And
Yeah.
then just kind of leave it at that.
Yep.
And most guys don't have a problem with it.
Yeah,
There are
and, like,
sometimes every now and then someone will be like, I don't really care. But
we've had parents come down to, like, the scorer's table and tell us, like, "Hey, you're saying the name wrong." And it's
yeah,
like, "Okay, sorry." But
like it's the most humbling experience as well. Or
my
they'll
main
say you sound too young or like not experienced enough, and it's like, oh.
oh, like, "What do you want me to do?" Like,
Well,
sorry.
I get it all the time. So like, this isn't my normal voice, but if I wanted to go into baseball, it's like, hold on, let me see if I can like hone in here quick. It's like top of the fifth inning, Ohio State leads 7-5 on Big Ten plus blah blah
Yep.
blah, like
Yeah.
that.
I mean, it's the same
I've
for me,
also
like, I go into it, leading off for the Buckeyes, number 6,
yeah,
Henry Kazmar. Like, it's my voice, but it's different.
it's your voice, but it's tuned. It's a little
It is.
deeper. You enunciate things more. You might stop or start at certain words. Like I add a little more flair to certain words. Like
Yep.
I've noticed that I was rewatching a clip of a strikeout from the Sunday game against Iowa. So the game after the
Yep.
spring game, it was a strikeout from Gavin DeVoe, the pitcher. And I said the word fastball with like more flair. So it was like a great fastball. And then I say that, and then I just end it normally. I don't
Yeah.
do that normally. I only do it then because I understand that if you do that, someone's gonna be like, okay, I understand. This is a main pitch or something that he's going to use a lot. So I'll add a little bit more oomph to it.
Yep. Yeah. It's it's definitely it's more of an art than I ever thought. Like, I knew
Me
it
too.
was impressive, but there's just so much more to it that a lot of people don't understand.
Hmm.
So, To kind of start to wrap things up here, one thing
Mm.
I'm curious on for you is what's the dream? What's your end goal if you have one, or what's your big goal? Like, what would you love to have your career turn into?
Well, there's a couple things. If I had to like choose one sport for the rest of my career, I'm hoping that it's not that situation. But
Yeah.
if it is, it would be baseball. And of course, as a kid, I grew up a Yankees fan. So if I could be the voice of the Yankees, great. But like, you tell me the Red Sox need a main play-by-play guy, I'm not saying no. Like, and any professional MLB team, I would take in a heartbeat, and that's a dream.
And
But
not
like
to interrupt
the
not to
yeah,
interrupt you real
no, you're
quick,
good.
but that's the thing with me, right? So I always talk about this because I grew up a Michigan fan. I was born and raised a Michigan fan, still am,
Hmm.
openly. And
Yeah,
like my rule, I'm sorry, I can't ever root for Ohio State football. I can't. I just can't do
no,
it.
I get that. No, I understand that.
Outside of football, I'm a
Doesn't necessarily matter.
I'm a middleweight Ohio State fan. If they're not
Well,
playing Michigan, I want
yeah.
Ohio State to win. We'll say that.
Well, the
But
way I look at it is, I never grew up an OSU guy. Like my family,
yeah,
none of them were. So it's like I'll root for OSU, but like the rivalry and hatred. While I'm a student, it's like yeah, I'll play into it, but it's like I don't have a burning hatred for you. It's
and
like
like you'll
I want OSU to win, but
you might feel the same way I do, where like working in college sports, I don't want to say has ruined it, but it's ruined the glamour of college sports. Like you really realize, like, especially you, like you're the same age as these kids. You go to class with these kids. Me,
yeah,
I'm only 28, but I'm like, dang, these are just kids that are playing a game, somehow drawing 100,000 people in a weekend. And
I can't
like
even imagine it.
it kind of like, I don't want to say ruins it, but I can't think of a better word of, the glamour behind it all.
It
Um,
it it shrouds how you look at it.
it does, but, like, I get asked all the time by people, they're like, "Oh, so, you're a Michigan fan, but you work at Ohio State doing the scoreboard, like, do you" and legitimately, I've been asked by people, like, "Do you ever, m modify the clock or change how you do things if they're playing Michigan, or if, do this or that?" I'm like, "No,"
No, that's cheating. That you
because
get fired by doing that.
I'd get fired for that. B, what does it benefit if I do that?
It
Like,
doesn't.
okay, we win a game, cool. Doesn't do anything for me. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, I am there, and like, fandom doesn't matter when you're in what we're doing. Like, it's okay to be a fan.
You have to be neutral. You
It's
have to
it's
be.
it's great to be a fan, but one of my friends asked me yesterday, they're like, "No offense, but, like, why do they pay you to run the scoreboard for football when they could just find a student to do it?" And I told her, I said, "It's because what are the chances of them going to an Ohio State student and saying, 'Hey, come run the scoreboard for football?' And
And be
them being
unbiased about it as
being
well.
able to guarantee that that person's unbiased,
Yep.
at least in what they do. If they're up in the press box cheering or whatever, like, whatever, like, every once in a while, like, if
Whatever.
there's a big play, it'll get loud in our box, doesn't matter. But, like,
Yeah.
the chances of them just focusing in on the game and only worrying about where the ball's at, what's going on, is slim to none.
Yeah.
And so, like, it's just it's always interesting to kinda have that, like, conversation, and where you say, like, you grew up a Yankees fan, which Yankees Red Sox is one of the biggest rivalries in the world.
Mhm.
And, like, the fact that you understand, and, like, it says a lot about you and what, like, the job means to you, and not just the sport, but, like, that rivalry doesn't matter when it comes to a job.
No,
Like,
if I put the
y
headset on and you go, "All right, I need you," like, even if I'm the Red Sox guy, I'm like, "We need you to be biased for the Red Sox." All right, that's my job.
yeah,
The
and,
people who
like,
are listening
don't
have
get me
might have
wrong.
been Red Sox fans for 80 plus years. I'm not just gonna go away from that.
Don't get me wrong. I look forward to that Michigan week. I look forward to
Oh,
that.
yeah, no, exactly, like
When Michigan was here 2 years ago in 21, 22. Yeah,
mhm.
even year. So they were here in 22. Like, dude, I was down on the field before the game taking pictures of all the Michigan equipment on the side, like, taking
Yeah.
pictures of Michigan stuff. I was introducing myself to Michigan people
There's always
upstairs.
that kid in you that loves a sport and
And not to take up too much time going
team.
sidetracked here, but like the kid in me thing. I mean, I'm pretty sure I've talked about it on here before. Growing up a Michigan fan, we had the Michigan marching band CD, and you'd listen to
Yeah,
it, and the first thing you hear on it is Carl
the fight
Grapentine,
song.
the PA announcer for Michigan,
Oh.
So,
Really?
ladies and
That's kind of
gentlemen,
cool,
the
actually.
Michigan marching band, and like you hear the band come out, band take the field. It's his like signature thing. He's been doing it since the 60s. Still doing
Yeah,
it.
that's cool.
He travels since the 60s. I think he told me he's missed less than 10 games since I think 1967.
Oh
Home
my
and away.
goodness.
Home and away because he's the band PA announcer, so he travels. And then in '06 he
Jeez.
started doing game PA as well. So he does
Goodness.
every game. And he even lived in Chicago and had, I think it was a 4-hour commute to Ann Arbor for games,
That's I
and
mean, you gotta respect the
never
dedication
missed
for
one.
that.
But it was really cool because I got to meet him because he travels to the stadium, and you know
Mhm.
introduced myself, and told him that family connections to the university and all this stuff, and like it was really cool to meet him and stuff like that. Is the past 2 episodes I've recorded with Matt Goldman, he we and with Connor. There's too many Connors. Connor
Shoot.
Shoe. Yeah, I got Connor. I got another Connor here coming up soon. But I got too many people I'm talking to. With
Seriously.
them, we talked about, talking to people. And if you see, Gus Johnson or Ian Eagle, Noah Eagle, stop, say hey to them. Worst they can
Yeah.
say is, I don't have time to talk. I'm busy getting ready for a game, whatever. Best case scenario, you make a connection and you get to know that person. And that happened with me with the PA announcer for Michigan with Carl. So,
Yeah.
I made that connection with him. He actually friended me on Facebook a couple weeks later,
That's funny.
and we're still in contact today. We were talking about, Michigan won the championship. I told him, I said, make sure you wear your ring down. I want to see it when you come to Ohio State at the end of the year.
Yeah, which
Stuff
you know
like
he's gonna
that. And
do.
oh, absolutely. And stuff like that. Well, I
Yeah.
have a 5-year-old nephew who's diehard Michigan fan. He's 5 years old. The rivalry, just all he knows is
He's
he hates
all in it.
Ohio State. He
Yep.
didn't want to come to the Globetrotters when they played at Ohio State because it was at Ohio State.
That's so
Even though it has
funny.
nothing to do with him. But we took him to his first Michigan game this past year against Rutgers. And so I texted Carl and said, hey, Carl, I'm going to be in town. Would love to meet up, grab dinner, even just say hi if you want to on Friday night, before the game. And he's like, actually, he goes, we have band rehearsals on Friday. They're typically closed to the public, but it's homecoming week. And so it's open to the public for the band rehearsal. We go through our whole show
Oh,
and everything. Come on up. You can come up in the press box and hang out with me and, see the everything up there. I'm like,
that's really
absolutely.
cool.
I mean, I'd never
Yeah,
been
that's
in the
really cool.
Michigan press box before. And so I get talking to my dad because it was myself, my dad, my brother, his girlfriend, and my brother's son that went. And so the game was Saturday, Friday night. We're like, okay, we're gonna go up to Ann Arbor. We'll go to the stadium, go to this band rehearsal. And I got talking to Carl. I'm like, hey, how many people would be allowed to come up into the press box? And he said, oh, I could take a couple. He goes, who all do you have? And I said, told everybody, and I'm like, but honestly, I said, my brother, his girlfriend, and my nephew would probably be better off just being in the stands. They would enjoy that more. The kid running around, having fun in the stadium and all this
Yeah.
stuff, empty stadium. But I said, my dad and then my grandfather, who is in his 90s, and he's been a Michigan fan since he was 14. Been a Michigan fan his whole life, been going to the stadium since he was 14 years old, 80 years.
Yeah.
Um, and he doesn't get around very well anymore, so he can't go to games, which is
Mhm.
rough. Um, but I'm like, would he be able to come? And he goes, absolutely. He goes, I drive into the stadium on the concourse, park right at the elevator, and go up because there's nobody there. He's able to drive in because Carl's getting older too, doesn't get around as well
Yeah.
as he used to. So he said for those, he's able to just do that. And he said, so that'd be perfect. And so, like, just that connection of saying hi to a guy at Ohio State game then
Mhm.
led to less than a year later being able to take my grandpa, my dad, my brother, and his son all to Michigan Stadium during a closed event,
Yeah.
and just having that, like, there was 4 what, 3 generations of or 4 generations of my family
That's
there at
cool.
once is just a cool thing. And
That's
then
sweet.
I have pictures I can show you later at baseball if you care
Yeah.
to see them. But like
Yeah.
my grandpa, talking to Carl, and they're just having these
That's
memories
so
back and
cool.
forth of Michigan football. And like Carl's like Tyler is for baseball.
He
Carl's
knows
like
he
that for
knows
Michigan football.
everything.
My dad,
Yeah.
he goes, I'm pretty sure I brought Andy, who's my brother that was there. He goes, I'm pretty sure I brought Andy with me to the hottest game I'd ever been to here. And Carl's like, oh, 1998 Virginia Tech, so-and-so caught a touchdown in the far corner of the end zone here with so many seconds left on the clock. I'm
It's
like, how do you
he's just
remember that?
he's a bank of
It's
knowledge. Yeah, it's like,
amazing
dude,
that they can remember that. And I'm like, I don't remember who pitched for Ohio State last week when I called the game. Like,
exactly. No,
but
and I understand that.
yeah,
It's
so
actually similar for me. Before I get back to your question, but
yeah.
I had gotten the opportunity to talk to Connor Onion
Yep.
this summer. He's a Big Ten guy. I know you had said Noah Eagle. I actually did get to talk to him at Notre Dame and Wisconsin as well. Great dude. He and Todd Blackledge. But like someone like Connor, all I did was send him a message on LinkedIn. I was like, hey, look, I know what you do. I love what you do. I want to do what you do.
Mm-hmm.
Any shot I could just send you a text or hop on a 20-minute phone call. Like nothing crazy, just like that.
Yeah.
And it turned into that. I've now had lunch with him a couple of times. He and I are, I'm not saying in constant communication, but like if I send him a message, within a couple of days, I'll get it back because he's
Yeah.
traveling. But
Yeah.
like we've done that. When he actually made his MLB debut for Fox a few weeks ago, he went and did a game, and I was like, dude, like that's sweet. I know he had applied for a bunch of jobs in the MLB and stuff like that, so I know that's like his big thing. So I talked to him about that, but it's all you do is just reach out. Like you
Yeah.
said, the worst thing they do is say no. It's like
Yeah.
okay, there's going to be someone who says yes and wants to help,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
but
And worst case scenario, you get a funny story out of it.
yeah.
I have a
Well,
funny
that's
I have a story
yeah,
with oh my god. How am I forgetting his name? Gus Johnson,
yep.
where he was in line for food at halftime of an Ohio State game, and I walked by with hot dogs, and he asked me what they had, and I said hot dog, and him and I got into a conversation about what you put on a hot dog.
That
Like
sounds like a Gus Johnson conversation.
it's super
That
random.
sounds like a Gus Johnson
It's
conversation,
super
though.
random, but it happens and it's fun. So
Yeah,
so yeah, no, back to the question. So you said, if you had to stick to one sport, it'd be baseball.
it would be baseball.
W-
If
w-
not,
Yeah, let's hear the rest of it.
what Brian Anderson does, if you know who that is, he works for CBS and TNT.
Yep.
He's also the main TV play-by-play for the Milwaukee Brewers.
Okay.
He and Joe Davis are actually very similar, where Joe Davis is the main TV play-by-play for the Dodgers, but he's on Fox all the time, so he's doing stuff like that. So Brian Anderson, to me, is like I'm not saying the peak of what I want to do, because he's a main baseball play-by-play guy for a professional team, which the MLB, that's like, if I could do that, I'd cry.
Yeah.
And that's just the truth. You do that. He also does the NBA. He does the NCAA tourney, and he'll do playoff baseball. He can do all of those. He does those for a network. So
Yep.
if I could, what my goal would be is, I understand, as you get higher and higher into the industry, your time becomes less and less.
Yeah.
If I could, I would love to do baseball as a main TV play-by-play guy, work for a network for basketball, whether it's NBA or college. If I can do playoff baseball, great. If not, okay.
Yep.
And then my love for football is just growing. And, when I broadcasted, I listened. I was like, dude, this is not good enough, but I know what it will be one day. So I want to do football as well. But like, if I could network for a network, I would do baseball, basketball, football. And then
Yeah.
if I could also be a main play-by-play guy for a team on the side, or like as my job, I would. I understand it's very outlandish. You probably have to cut a sport out of that. So I'd
Yeah.
probably cut football, but basketball, baseball on March Madness, the playoffs, and
Yeah.
regular season, that would be my dream job.
That's awesome. So I think I've covered everything that I want to talk to you about. And if there's anything that
Mhm.
you want to cover, we can hit that now. Otherwise, I have 4 questions that I ask everybody that comes on. Call them the power play questions. And
All right,
if there's nothing else you want to cover, then we can get into those.
let's hit them.
All right, they're just 4 real quick hitters. First of all, if you could have dinner with anybody, past, present, future, who would it be?
Ooh, that is a great question. Does it have to be sports related or just in
No,
general?
nope, in general.
I've actually never thought about this. Um, if I'm going to do sports related, I'm going to say Kevin Harlan,
Okay.
just because of like his just what he's done. I think of all time though, that's a great question. Probably Jackie Robinson. I feel like that'd be cool. He or Kobe Bryant. I feel like those two would
Yeah.
be really cool because I grew
Yeah.
up, like with Jackie idolizing him in baseball. But then, as much as I was a Knicks fan, I loved Kobe. So
He's one of those that you just have to recognize the greatness.
yeah, you had
Like
to.
it's unbelievable. What is your
Hmm.
favorite venue that you have worked in? I'm assuming I make the assumption with the Ohio State students, it's going to be the Shoe or Covelli or the Shot. So for Ohio State students, Ohio State venues are not allowed. Favorite venue
Okay,
you have
that's
worked
easy.
in? I figured, but
Um, well, Jerry's World is really cool.
okay.
AT&T.
Oh yeah,
I am a Giants fan, so like kind of like whatever. Have you heard of Curtis Granderson Field at Curtis Granderson Field?
I've not.
If you could do a quick Google search, Curtis
Yeah.
Granderson Field, it's where UIC plays the Flames. It's one of the prettiest backdrops I've ever seen, and I had the opportunity to work there twice. It is beautiful.
Oh wow,
I wish we could
that's
like show the
really
people.
cool.
It's the most beautiful stadium.
I'll put a link to an image in the show notes
All right. I'll
in the
also
description.
show you like the live pictures later. Like, going to the big house Notre Dame Stadium and Jerry's World are incredible. And I'll never take those for granted. My dream, if I could, is of course the Rose Bowl.
Of course,
But that stadium right there, Curtis Granderson, is not only for I got to interview Curtis on a broadcast at the
that's
stadium,
cool.
but I had gotten to be there and it's the backdrop of Chicago and you're watching baseball. It's beautiful.
If you want to see a beautiful backdrop on a stadium, look up Pepperdine University's baseball. It's in Long Beach, I
Yep.
think, out in
Yeah, it's the
California,
beach,
Malibu,
isn't it?
or it's literally on the
Do
ocean.
you know App State? App
Yeah.
State's.
Oh my
I
God,
got to
that is
broadcast there this past summer as well.
gorgeous down there.
Incredible, incredible.
Funny side story, because I know we're running out of time here, but funny side story. So in high school, I was on the golf team, and
Hmm.
my golf coach was also a basketball coach, and he asked me to do film for basketball, so I did all that. So I got really close and tight with him, and he played at Appalachian State, and he was telling us all about his time and all this stuff, and he was being recruited to go to different places, and he went to Appalachian State and visited in the summer, and he's like, this is great. He goes, it's a
Hmm.
beautiful campus, it's in North Carolina,
It's in the
it's
mountains of Boone,
it,
North Carolina.
it's
Yep.
well, he didn't put that together. He just said, "Oh, it's in North Carolina. It's in the South. It's warm. It's nice." He said he gets on
Hmm.
campus and finds out it's a ski resort town. He was
Nope, it's
expecting,
in mountains.
he was thinking North Carolina. He's going to be in the nice warm weather all year long. He's like, "This is
You're closer to
bull."
Tennessee than you are the
he's like,
beaches. Yeah.
he's like, "This is wrong." But yeah. Um. So next question: what TV show are you currently watching or binging? And if you're not, what is your favorite TV show?
So I just recently finished watching Invincible, the
Okay.
animated show. Really good. Also finishing up Shogun on Hulu. I don't know if
Never
you've
heard of
heard of
that.
that.
No.
Both of them. One of them is animated. It's like a comic by Robert Kirkland, the guy who created The Walking Dead.
Okay.
Incredible show, very violent, probably not family friendly, but
Yeah.
that's okay. And then Shogun as well, also very violent, also not family friendly. But that's about like the Japanese Civil War.
Yeah.
Both
That's
of those
awesome.
shows are incredible.
Yeah. And then final question, if they're making a movie about your life, who do you want to play you?
Hmm. Wow. This is actually a really tough question. Trying to think like.
See, Matt yesterday did something that nobody I've ever had has done, and he turned it around
Did
on
he
me.
say he wanted to play himself?
No, every question he turned around on me and asked me who I'd have. I'm like, really? I don't know. I don't think about
I'm
these
not
things.
ready.
I'm
I'm
not
not
ready
ready
for
for
this. I've only
this.
asked this question
Um.
15 times.
See, it's like the way I got to think about it is you have to make them somewhat accurate.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not getting Timothy Chalamet to play me because I'm not as
No.
thin as Timothy Chalamet. I don't
Nope.
have the jawline like Timothy. Um, and I know it's probably like a namesake thing, but Austin Butler, as of
Okay.
recent, I think we're like facial structure is similar enough, and you could give him just like curly hair, and I think
See,
he'd be
for
fine.
you, look wise, I'd go Will Ferrell.
You could do that as well. I haven't even thought of that.
Yeah. You could
That's a
go like
good
a
one.
younger
Yeah,
Will Ferrell. I mean, older Will Ferrell, not so much anymore, but like kicking and
yeah.
screaming Will Ferrell, yeah,
Oh yeah.
that'd fit
Well,
well.
ooh. See, like now, do you just go McConaughey?
You could, yeah, you could do that
All right,
too.
we're gonna go Matthew McConaughey. That's
There
my
you
list.
go.
We're gonna lock that in.
There you go. Tyler asked if he could play Iron Eagle in a movie, and I'm like, that is way too perfect.
Dude, that's actually perfect. Oh man, I'm gonna ask him about that later. Be like, who plays Noah? Because they're
That's
almost the exact same person.
Matt was saying that he showed a picture of Tyler. He met Iron Eagle and showed a picture of Tyler, and he said Iron Eagle was speechless.
That's awesome. Oh man,
But well, man, I really appreciate your time. I know
this has been awesome.
you got baseball to get ready for.
Yeah,
It's been a blast talking to you. Congratulations
you as well.
on the job this summer out in Iowa. Enjoy it. I've been there
Thank you, Dave.
once. It's gorgeous. Although I was there in early February in northern Iowa, I was cold. But you should
Yeah,
have better weather this summer.
we'll find out.
And I hope everything goes well for you. And I look forward to
Thank you.
working with you again next year, your senior
Yep,
year. And I look forward to staying in touch as we move forward, man.
of course, of course. We're gonna have to. We love
Yeah,
sports.
100%. Congratulations on everything, man. And
Thank you.
thanks for coming on.
All right, thank you for having me.